under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First off, I'd like to thank you all for coming. The order of discussion tonight, I want to talk a little bit about the people who are working on your water and sewer systems. Then I want to talk about the 2010 accomplishments, 2011 planned actions, and then I'm going to go into the proposed water and sewer rate changes. If everybody got a hand out there up in front here. Whenever you're working with something like an infrastructure, pipes, pumps, whatever it is, you have to have a strategic plan to work on it and make the improvements that you need. And back 5 or 6 years ago, when I first got in office, I'm working my 6th year now, it became obvious. We had some major infrastructure problems, like in Hamiltonian Park in the year 2005. All the water line breaks cost you $77,000 to repair it. And then we, of course, we put a new pipe in, and we got a grant, pay for part of that, etc. Who's got the bad?
Shut them all over.
I think we need that mic off until we use it.
Okay.
Look, that's about when you have to turn
Okay, I'll just have my own light. Yeah, you don't need your mic. Just mine.
I think that's really what
Okay.
I'm leaving.
So anyway.
I'll get back.
I'm leaving.
Had enough?
So anyway, in addition to making the improvements, we need people who can make the improvements. And so I'd like to talk about the people that are behind the scenes. One of them is Ken Newbold, who's leaving right now. He is my co-chair in regard to water and sewer as commissioners. I look after most of the numbers and the planning, and Ken looks after a good deal of the in-field work when he can. But we compare things all the time, notes and things, of where we're trying to go and how we're trying to get there. The next one, we've got a significant improvement back in January 1st. A fellow named Broderick Knoll. Maybe you know him, maybe you went to school with him or some of his children. Broderick graduated from Goshen High School. He went to Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute and got a degree in mechanical engineering. He came to us when Mr. Andershak retired, and he said, listen, I'd like that job. So the board appointed Mr. Broderick Knoll as the superintendent of highways and head of the water and sewer department. And I'll talk a little bit later on of some of the things he's already done.
I left to get you some water.
Okay, thank you.
Is that good Goshen water?
You don't pay for that.
The other one is, then the two other people that are working on are Mark Warren and Anthony Lasapanero. Both of these individuals have been in the water department a couple of years or more. Both of them came out of private enterprise where they worked in water and sewer. They're very conscientious, and we consider them to do a good job. On the weekends, we have a water and sewer person from the county of Orange, Kyle Lindland, who also works for us on the weekends, taking tests and doing different repairs, etc. And lastly is Barbara Sokolowski, who is my assistant. She's the one that does all the billing. She's the one that takes all the phone calls of concern, and she's right in there with us. So we've got the right people doing it, and I think you'll see tonight some of the things that have been accomplished and things yet to be done. Okay. If I go to the next page on accomplishments, Hamiltonian Park, we've completed several ongoing miscellaneous improvements. If you look at the well points, for example, they all have new roofs, new fences, new signage. You go inside these buildings now, it's dress right dress. There's places to put the tools, etc. When we took it over 6 years ago, it was a hodgepodge. It was anything but professional looking. Been a lot of rewiring, etc. With 2010, we completed another year of zero water leaks in Hamiltonian Park since the installation of that new pipe. And again, that pipe cost you $500,000. The town board got $400,000 federal money. Took 13. God bless you. They took 13,000 out of the process. But basically, it was 400,000. That was getting a good return because the 1 year, 2005, it was $77,000 just to repair the water lines. You spent $500,000 over the next 20 years, and the fact is you haven't had any big sense. Arcadia Hills, we really haven't had too many problems up there at all. And so it's, again, ongoing miscellaneous improvements. One of the things we'll be looking at is the water storage tank in the next couple of years. We're more than likely to have to take it out of service, clean it, repair it, put it back in service. Stonehenge, we've done a lot of work out there on, again, on your water systems. We also completed a backup well project with all the associated hardware. A year ago, we were in here saying, well, we need the County of Orange Health Department has been pushing on us for years to have a backup well for Stonehenge. And we were saving the money. And we did use the money. And we had the money set aside. And so we paid cash for doing the well. And you'll find out a little later on, we had 2 water line breaks that cost $31,000. The well only cost $27,000. So Stonehenge has had a couple of major problems last year. But we do have a backup well. It's completed, bought and paid for. And I'll talk a little bit later on what we've got to do to get that well approved by the health department to put it back online. In Scotchtown, we're getting near the end of the rework of Scotchtown. We completed several significant miscellaneous improvements, and here I can talk when we decided that we bought a tank last year, 15,000 gallon water storage tank. We paid cash. It was delivered, parked on site in case the tank in existence failed. We decided that with the market as it was, rather than wait until we get all the money in hand, let's go out for competitive bids to see how cheap we can get this job done. And I think the bid came in, and don't hold me to this, it was somewhere, it was in the 30s. 36,000, 31,000, something like that. The next lower bid was 126,000. We only got 2 bids that showed how hungry people are in this recession to get the people to work. So we got a real deal at putting this tank in. When we did that, we also did some other improvements. They did some rewiring of the main panels. The pipe, when it comes out of the ground, by code is supposed to be, I think, 18 inches above the ground. This one was like 4 inches above the ground, didn't meet code. So while it was all apart, we welded a new extension on the well, put new pipes and this and that. And we also powered up a backup well. There was an abandoned powered backup well with some leads coming out of it. We didn't know if it would work or not. We put power to it, turned it on, and the darn thing started shooting out water. So Scotchtown, we don't have to drill a backup well, we found one. And so, money permitting, we're going to put that thing into service when we can. So, that's what we did in 2010 in regard to water districts. In Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hills sewer districts, one of the things we were working on is we're trying to reduce the amount of groundwater going into your sanitary sewer. And groundwater comes from 2 sources. It can go through the manholes into the sanitary sewer off the road, or if there are cracks in the pipes, if the water table comes up, it can go in those cracks and crevices and get into the pipes. Because the sewer line is not pressurized. It's a negative pressure. And the water, the hydraulic pressure in the ground will just shoot the water in there. There is a third way to get water into the sanitary sewer, and we'll talk more about that. And that is the roof drains and sump pumps. And we've been writing letters to citizens out in these 2 subdivisions. We need to inspect your homes for inappropriate sump pumps and roof drains. Because every bit of that water that goes in, you all are paying for it. And we've got to decrease this amount of water. So they call that inflow and infiltration. It's inflow if it goes in the manhole. It's infiltration if the water pressure comes up in the soil and the hydraulic pushes into the pipe. Hamiltonian Park, we've reduced the amount of sanitary sewage we sent to the village by 4.8%, or 1.24 million gallons, when we compare 2010 to 2009. Good progress. If we compare 2010 to 2008, I think it was 7.8%.
When you say you reduced it, is it because we got less rain, or?
No. Well, it could be very well, everything being equal.
Yeah.
We have done some things. We put seals in all the manholes. We've gone out and inspected about 25% of the homes and disconnected some sewer.
So some of that.
Yeah. We've
Identified leaks.
We've identified leaks and fixed them. So yeah, there's a myriad, but we have not done the big things. We've got to go in and do some major rework of these things. To tell you what, let me come back if we can, and now we'll come back and if I can. Now in Arcadia Hills, we decreased the inflow and infiltration by 6.3%, or 2.1 million gallons of 2010 versus 2009. If we look back to 2008, we've improved it by 22%. And the reason being is we found, Mark Warren was the fellow who found it, when they built the Arcadia Hills sewer pit, a big pit like a tank, and all the sewage from all your subdivision goes in that tank. And there are two pumps in there. One runs at a time to pump that sewage out of that tank and send it to the village. Well, when Arcadia Hills was built, the people building the system, what they did, they took a pipe and they put it near the top of this pit. And that pipe went off through the woods to a stream. And it was built so that if those two pumps failed, okay, and instead of the sewage backing up to the households, it would go in that overflow pipe to the stream, which of course is illegal. But back when they built Arcadia Hills, it was not illegal. And at the end of that pipe, it had a flap. And so as the sewage would go out the flap, and then the sewage all would go out there, when it flapped, came back, no water could go in it, because this pipe was right at the level of the stream. So Mark saw one day all this water coming into the pit. So where is that coming from? So he traced the pipe out, went to the stream was high, and it was just sending pure water into your pit. That's why we got a 22% reduction. He probably got 15% reduction on that one item. So these are the things that we've been trying to do. And that translates to money. We've initiated home inspections for inappropriate sump pump and roof drain connections I talked about. We're probably 25% done because people have not responded to us. And we're going to put the pressure on going forward now that Mr. Knoll's in there. We just got to fix this because we know, highly suspect. And people don't know they're inappropriately connected. If you buy a house from someone and you got a sump pump, you don't know where that pipe's going. Instead of going out on your lawn, it's going right into the sanitary sewer, of which we're all paying for. The other thing we did is, as you all know, we challenged the village back for the 2008 charges. We didn't understand them. We now understand them, and we certainly believe we were overcharged. That happened again in 2009. This board, we talked. We got our accountant, we got our engineer. We looked at all the facts and figures, and we said, "Yeah, we've been overcharged." We firmly believe that, but we weren't getting the answers we needed. So the board authorized me to send a letter to the New York State Comptroller requesting an audit of the village sewer finances. And lo and behold, they agreed to do this. I also put in the letter to audit the town's sewer financial records. And they agreed to do that. So the auditors came in and spent quite a bit of time with Bill in the town within a day or two, and really couldn't find anything of significance. But they went to the village, and they drew a couple of conclusions that are in the audits. One is they highly suspect that the town was overcharged. They didn't go in a great bit of detail. The other thing is they thought that the plant
You're in trouble, Johnny. There's somebody in the back row.
So anyway, the other thing is that that they were in the audit results was there was quite a bit of concern about how the plant moving and the relocating the landfill and all that other stuff was done without really understanding what they were doing. Okay, so there were a couple of serious deficits in that audit that we say were serious. The village said, well, it was not a good audit, it was a bad audit. So I don't want to go in a contest with it, but that's where that came from. We then initiated negotiations for trying to create a new contract between the village and the town. And Mr. Newbold, Mr. Capella, and Dennis Kaplicki, the attorney for the town, those three were assigned by the board, and they started negotiating sessions with the village to determine a contract that would be better on representing us, on what we think we need to pay. Well, that was kind of, it died, because we got to a point where to lower our rates, they would have to raise the rates of the people in the village. And there's no energy to do that. So why negotiate if you're not willing to do that? That's what we're out all about. So it came to a screeching halt. And the last thing is the village then wanted to sue us for this money. There's between Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hills is about $180,000 that the village says we owe. And we say it's inappropriate, we don't owe it. So they sued us for the money. Well, in our contract that we had, and in Hamiltonian Park, I think that contract's 51 years old. It says right in there in black and white that if there's a dispute between the village and the town over any sewer issues, it will be adjudicated through arbitration. Arbitration is much cheaper and much quicker. And as Mr. Cantorino said, who lives in the village, he doesn't want to spend his taxpayer money to sue himself, okay? Because that's what will be happening. So anyway, we challenged this. We challenged the lawsuit, and we won. And Judge Slobod said, no, arbitration is appropriate. And so that's where we're at. That was 2010. Now, in 2011, under Stonehenge Water District, the next thing we're going to be doing in 2011 is we're going to prepare your backup well for service. And what happens from an engineering perspective, when you drill a well, you put the casing in the ground, you're going to create bacteria on the drill bits and the groundwater and everything else. And so the first thing the health department asks us to do is to sanitize that well from the bottom to the top. You decontaminate it. You kill all the bacteria. And then for the next year, you pump it on a certain frequency. You take that water and you check it for bacteria. At the end of a year, and this is oversimplification, but at the end of a year, if that water has no bacteria in it, that well can be put online. If you do have bacteria in it, which happens quite often, you just can't prevent it. If you do have bacteria in it, then you've got to put a chlorinating system in to chlorinate the water before you put it in your tanks and into the homes. So for the next 12 months, or actually be now about 9 months, we'll be doing that to prepare the backup well for service in Stonehenge. But in regard to the water, it's a high volume well. It should serve the people in Stonehenge for a long, long time. The other thing we've got to do is we've got to accumulate funds for the purchase of new water meters. All of our water districts have the new water meter. Scotchtown Water District, instead of the water line going down the road and then in front of the homes and hook everybody to the front, the builder decided it would be cheaper if he ran diagonally through people's yards in the backyards and hooked up 3 or 4 homes through the back. And that's where it's leaking, in someone's backyard. So Mr. Knoll went out there yesterday. They rented a very, very tiny excavator that would fit in between a fence and a couple of trees and a storage building. And they dug down and they found one of the leaks. And that leak they repaired this morning. There's one more leak. This is on private property. This goes in the main header and it goes into a person's yard under a patio, and they suspect the leak is, guess what, somewhere near the house. So, but that's going to be the responsibility of the homeowner, because from the street to the home is the responsibility of the homeowner. So this poor folks, the shortcut to the backyard, putting a patio on it, probably never knew the pipe was there, and that's what happens when you build subdivisions without codes years ago. So we were going to prepare a plan. We had to use the plan yesterday, but more than likely in the long run, we may very well, depending on the quality of those pipes, we may have to run a pipe down the street in front of those homes, go in the front with new services. We probably won't do that until we need to, but we'll see. Just when you think you're out of the woods, something else pops up. Finances permitting, we're going to prepare this backup well for service. We've got the well, we've got to disinfect it, we've got to pump it, and all those things. We're probably talking $7,000 or $8,000 by the time we do all that work and test it. But as I told Mr. Knoll, until we have the cash in hand, we're not going to do it. They've lived out there all these years without that backup well, and it's just, we don't need to be borrowing money and hurting people on that one. So, anyway, that still remains to be done. And then I think, when that's done, I think that Scotchtown Water District is going to have an entire new system. And still the pipes in the ground are still the old ones, but in terms of the pumps, the electrical, and the tank, and all that stuff, it's all new. And it really looks good. Hamiltonian Park, we're going to have a meeting on the 18th of May. The board has been negotiating on your behalf with New York Farms, or the AKA Heritage Estates, Inc., for creation of a joint water district. This proposal will be presented to the Hamiltonian Park residents on 5/18 for their consideration and approval. Now what this is, for those who may not know, if you go out the old Chester Road, they're going to build 75 new homes on the old Coke Farm. That's been the plan for a long, long time. And this is going to be, that subdivision is going to be called New York Farms. And so they came to the board and said, okay, we want to create a water district and a sewer district. And so we got thinking about this, and the proposal, what we're going to give you on the 18th, and I hope all the Hamiltonian Park folks are here, is we're going to propose to expand your sewer and water districts all the way out there, so all those 75 new homes are in the same district as you are. What that will do is then you'll go from 165 homes paying for every repair to 165 plus 75 more. So it's kind of like a risk pool for insurance. The more you have, the less it hurts individuals. The other good part of that, of course, is that Heritage Estates, or the New York Farms, is going to have all brand new infrastructure. They're not going to need any repairs. But the infrastructure in Hamiltonian Park is 50 plus years old, so it will need repairs. We know that. So there'll be some other people to help you pay for that. But we're going to go through that, and there's some money involved as well, and some upfront work and things. So we want to do this on May 18th because if the people in Hamiltonian Park accept this concept, and we can create this joint district, then work on the infrastructure will begin in midsummer, if weather permitting and everything else. So we think it's a good deal, the Hamiltonian Park folks. I think they'll think it's a good deal once they see the money and stuff involved, but it's certainly up to them. But that has taken a good deal of this board's time negotiating that kind of deal.
Are they building their own sewer plant?
No, they're going to be hooked into the village. Yeah.
What, go
ahead.
the Salesian, there was a meeting here for building on the Salesian property
Yes.
a while ago. Whatever happened with that?
Oh, it's going to go.
Is there some thought about tying them in with our sewer and water?
Well, that's going to happen too, we think. And so you're going to get another 100 homes. to
They
help
talked
them.
about building a sewer plant. I think they're wrong.
No, they're not.
No, okay.
No, one time the village was not going to let anybody in. Now the village is, oh my God, we need more customers to help pay for this thing we've got. So, no, they're looking for customers. And but we'll come back, if I can, I'll come back to that because that's a very good point you're making. Very good point. Okay. Arcadia Hills. We right now are looking at routine maintenance. We're going to examine the success of this Hamiltonian Park Joint District and look for a similar application for the Arcadia Hills residents. There's a subdivision being planned nearby Arcadia Hills. It's called Lone Oaks. And they're going to have a significant number of homes. I don't remember what it is. But right now there are 254 homes in Arcadia Hills. And I think this other one, the board can help me, is in excess of 100. So it will certainly increase your risk pool, and those new homes would be helping to defray some of your costs in the future. So that's what we're going to try to do for Arcadia Hills. Now, for sewer districts, we're going to do the same thing for the sewer district. We're going to, in terms of Hamiltonian Park. And again, if the citizens approve this or want it, then we will sign a contract, and early to midsummer, they will start work. Completed installation of we completed installation of a new improved impeller on sewer pump number 2 to extend the life and reduce the maintenance costs. As I said, Mr. Knoll is a mechanical engineer. And if you know anything about Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute, it's one of the finer engineering schools in the nation. Very difficult to get in. You've got to be a bright guy or gal to get in. And Mr. Knoll did. And his first day on the job, we had 3 things happen. Well, first week anyway. We had a snowstorm, we had a pump failure in Hamiltonian Park, and we had a water leak. And so he got baptized under pressure. When number 2 pump, as I said, you got the sewer pit. Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hills are the same. All the street sewage goes into a pit. And then these pumps, there are 2 pumps, and they oscillate back and forth. One will run a day, the other will run a day, you know. And they pressurize the sewage and they pump it through a line to the village for processing. It's not gravity fed. So anyway, number 2 pump in Hamiltonian Park, the shaft broke. It's a big shaft, 3/4 inch to an inch shaft. And it cost somewhere between, I'd say, $7,500 to $10,000 to take the pump out of service, have it rebuilt, and reinstall it. So it's not a cheap item. So Mr. Knoll said to Mark Warren, he said, okay, I want the history on these 2 pumps. I want to know how often they're breaking. Yeah, okay. So they got the computer report out. The number 1 pump hadn't broken, I think, since 1996. The number 2 pump has been breaking every 9 months. So every 9 months have been spending all this money. So Mr. Knoll then got all the prints of all the pumps and all the stuff. And he said, well, there's why. It has an inferior impeller on it. These impellers are designed such that they're steady as you go, and they positive feed the sewage out. And the impeller that we had is creating vibration. And if any of you have ever taken a coat hanger and you want to throw it away and you want to put it in a garbage bag, you bend it real quick, it gets warm, if you bend it and then it snaps in two. I've done that a lot. I don't know if everybody else has done it, but
They use pus now.
I used to like to do that when I was a kid, but anyway, that's a mechanical failure when you do that. So what this impeller was doing was getting that shaft to vibrate, and it was heating. And after 9 months, it snapped. It weakened the steel. Now, if you're a mechanical engineer, you understand those things, and you apply the technology. So he had a new impeller made, the right one, fixed it, put it back in service. So now we hope we will not be spending $7,500 to $10,000 every year and a half, every year really, to fix this. So it's a cost saving, and these are the kinds of things that we're going to be trying to do for all the water and sewer districts. Do things that are going to save you money. While we're talking about money, one guy I didn't mention is Joe Klopshin. Joe Klopshin came on board about 6 years ago. Joe Klopshin is a college-graduated science person. He got certified with a water and sewer license by the state of New York. He knows what he's doing. He's well-connected. He's in his own private enterprise. And he does a lot. He did a lot, even running our system. Now try this one on. I think this is really, I give a lot of credit. I was at home having a bowl of soup, and I was just thinking all these costs. And I'm going to call Joe. So I called Joe and said, Joe, we're going to be phasing you out over a year. We're charging you, I think it's $2,000 a month, give or take. And we've got Mr. Nolan there now, and he's picking up some of the things you were doing. Now, he doesn't have his license yet, but he will by the end of the year. We still want to use your license. We still want to use your consultant. But since he's taking over some of the work for you, can you sharpen your pencil and do anything for us? And he said, well, how sharp do you want it? I said, very sharp. How low do you want me to go? I said, I want you to go very low. Oh, geez. Okay, well, let me call the office. And so you take all the time you need, but just get back with me if you can cut your costs. And he called back in about 10 minutes. I didn't even finish my bowl of soup. Doug, and he said, well, I wasn't all that big. I'm a slow eater. But anyway, he said, well, I'll tell you what, Doug, the town of Goshen's been very, very good to me. I'm going to cut my costs $700 a month or $8,400 a year. So he went from $24,000 doing a lot of work for us, and he cut it by $8,400 just for the asking. So this is and I give him a lot of credit. He's done a lot for these two all our water and sewer districts. A good deal of the improvements are due to his expertise and planning. So we're trying to do these things, keep your costs down, and keep you in water and sewer. Now, Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia sewer districts. We've got to complete these inspections of the homes for inappropriate pumps. And I'm going to turn to Mr. Knoll and say, listen, let's write one more letter, and we're going to ask these people to respond, and if they can't, then this board's going to have to figure out what we're going to do. But we cannot continue with the possibility of putting rainwater into the sanitary sewer. And so I hope that everybody hears that. Not that we want to be mean-spirited, but it's probably one of the largest cost savings we can come up with.
The engineer requested that.
Yeah.
Well, but when you say largest cost savings, what are you talking about?
I don't know. It depends on how many inappropriate. Our engineer said this: if you have a sump pump going into a sanitary sewer, that home will deliver many, many more times water to the sanitary sewer than all your shower tubs and so forth. I mean, you're over-doubling or tripling or quadrupling the amount of water into the sewer for that time period when it's running, because it's going all the time. And so it's a real, real big deal. And so it's important, and we certainly don't want to get tough with anybody. But we do, and the thing is, we really believe that a lot of homes don't even know what's going on. that they bought, somebody before them didn't want the water in the yard, so they hooked it in when sewage was cheap. They sold the house, somebody else bought the house, and they don't even know what's going on. So it's something we can do that we can help ourselves. So we're going to try to do that.
But just to follow up.
Sure.
Why do we think that there's such a large amount of people who have these dump pumps and drainage?
Well, we don't know for sure, but the engineer, with the homes we've inspected so far, we found some.
Oh,
Okay. And so, when we look at the amount, during a rainstorm, the amount of sewage going to the village is 2.5 times what it is on a dry day. Now, where's it all coming from? It's coming from cracks in the pipes, it's coming from the manhole, or it's coming from roof drains, or it's coming from sump pumps. And I can't tell you which. We've got to look at them all, but 2.5 times as much. I mean, you can look at the numbers on daily reads, and and guess what? Year to date, your gentleman back here in the blue shirt saying, "Hey, well, it was due to a dry season." Well, I sure hope we get a dry season to catch up with January, February, March, and April year to date, because it's been horrendous. Yes, sir.
In the case of Hill, they repaired the street, the curb drainage.
Yes.
They repaired it, but then again, within a year, it's like a pothole, and the same place
Right.
where they repaired it.
But that's not a sanitary sewer. That's a storm drain sewer. Now, that's a DPW group. I know where you're talking about, and they need to go back up and fix that right. But that's groundwater that goes to the stream. It doesn't go into the sanitary sewer.
Well, that's one way to say it.
Sure is. The next thing we're going to try to do is we're going to complete the sewer dispute arbitration with the village. We started the arbitration, as I said to you earlier. Judge Slobod said yes, this dispute will be resolved with arbitration. And there are going to be 3 witnesses for the town so far: myself, our engineer, and our accountant. And I was the first one to go in the barrel, and with the attorneys, and I presented my case. And I was in there about 2.5 hours, speaking on behalf of the town, 2 sewer districts. I think I made a very strong case. We'll see. I don't want to talk a lot about it. I'm not going to go into specifics. We think we have a case. We thought that all along. You never know. But that's our plan. And as I want to say to you, win, lose, or draw, we're going to resolve this thing and move on. We're not going to go on and spend all kinds of legal dollars to chase a few cents. So, because all these legal expenses are being paid by the 2 sewer districts. Yes, sir.
Just a clarification, I wanted to find out. I know there was somewhat of a smoke screen sent up by the village, employing attorneys from, I believe,
Westchester
City, concerning a completely different argument stating the validity of the arbitrator and the arbitration versus the legislative law. It looks like a smoke screen, a stalling tactic, something to decide that the legal fees are going to get jacked up so that we decide that this is it. What's going on with that?
Okay, very good point. Mr. Kaplecki is our attorney for our town. He grew up here. He knows all of this stuff. In fact, his father was the mayor back in the 1950s. He just knows Goshen, and he appreciates our community versus the village and the town. The village, when we were setting up the guidelines for the arbitration, Judge Slobod had assigned John Cameron, Esquire, as the arbitrator. And in some of the first meetings, the village attorneys, and they had 2 of them, came up with what I call a legal maneuver, to say that the case could not be heard because of separation of powers under the Constitution. And of course, they put a brief in that regard. feel again cautiously optimistic that we're going to proceed on. And in that first session, when I was having my testimony heard, I brought up the fact that I didn't appreciate the village attorneys pulling this legal maneuver to keep us from being heard. And so that's the way it is, and so we'll fight that issue to be heard. Now, I don't know where it'll end up, but I think we're going to prevail. I mean, I'm always optimistic. Yes.
I just want to make sure that we're not going to be going down the same road that the village went with. I think it was the Tory incident where I have the Alfred E. Newman smile on the mayor saying we won the $50,000.
Oh my, yeah.
But we spent $350,000 for the attorney.
No.
You know, battles like that, victories like that, we lose the war.
Right. Well, what we have at stake here, guys and gals, is serious. It's not the $180,000 for 2008 and 9. It's the future. We've got to get relief. You know, and we've got to get relief for things that we're overcharged for, and that's why the arbitration is so important. And we create a new contract. So it's best to spend a little money now to get some clarity on this. But we're going the arbitration route because it's supposed to be cheaper, significantly cheaper. So we'll see what happens, and I'll keep you informed. Yes.
Who benefits by the building, the development in the area that are tapping into the water and sewer lines, except the village?
The village certainly benefits from all these new customers on sewer. And I'm not going to go into a lot of the issues for the arbitration and this and that because it's still in arbitration. But I think all I'm going to say is I think we've got a strong position. I think we're represented well. We've got an excellent engineer and an excellent accountant. And I think I did a great job. Yeah, that's it.
What about the meters? Maybe the meters are wrong.
No, the meters, we have those checked once a year. Oh, yeah, we keep the meters, they don't. We meter as it goes through the pump to them, and we report to them our meter readings. And of course, they want us every year to calibrate and make sure they're right on the money, and I've never found them to be drifting. They're always correct.
Are there meters at strategic points?
There is just one meter that these two pumps go through. When the sewage goes to the village, there's one for Arcadia Hills and one for Hamiltonian Park. Every bit of that sewage goes through, and we read it every day.
Would it help detect where the so-called infiltration is coming from?
Oh, we know where it's coming from. The rotten lines in the street. They've been there for 50 years. We know they...
Storm drains?
No. Oh, no, that's what we're looking for. Storm drains and sump pumps. But we've gone down in there with cameras and smoke and everything else, and these pipes are 51 years old. And they've got cracks. Where your home connection goes in, they just took a hammer and broke the pipe and shoved the pipe in. That's how the homes were built in those days. They didn't cut a hole and caulk it off or any of that stuff. So, we know what's wrong with the lines. We don't need to spend a lot of money on analysis, but we've got some ideas of things we're going to do, and we'll be doing those this coming year once we figure out the districts and all that.
Why are we all charged for usage if the main problem is infiltration?
Because the Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hills owns those lines. The village doesn't. We're responsible for that water getting in, not them. We pump them water, they're going to charge us for it. So the idea is, pardon?
Are we getting rid of the sump pumps? Because somebody came over to my house and checked my house. I was wondering, that was last year.
Right.
They should have checked all of it.
They have not checked because we wrote a letter on 3 occasions. People did not respond to the letter. So earlier on I'm saying what we're going to do is one of the things we're going to do in 2011, we're going to complete that job. We're going to write another letter, say call us, and we're going to schedule a visit. If you don't, this board is going to have to come up with a protocol. Do we find people? What do we do to ensure that those homes are looked at? Now, hopefully we'll never get to that, but we're going to do it. If I can complete, and then we'll come back, how would that be?
Did you say that they're going to check every home again?
Not every home again, only the homes that have not been checked.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Which is 75%.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is negotiate a new intermunicipal agreement for sewer services with the village. And that's going to be important, and certainly a lot of the issues where we have disagreement and this dispute, hopefully they'll be resolved, and the arbitrator will say, well, this is this, and we're going to use those to build the new contract going forward.
Doug, a question about the IMA. Is there a time limit to extend the IMA to have it reviewed after, say, 20 years
Yes.
or whatever?
There is.
And will that be part of the recommended resolution?
I should think it would be the same.
As opposed to waiting to 51 years, 10 years, 5,
Sure.
knowing that technology improves and things
Right.
happen.
You know, we're so much, and that's a good point. Today, in 2011 versus 1950 or 1960, the materials that you build lines with are much better. The contract that we have today with the computers and everything else, we have much better contract. Our ability to read meters by driving through, by having the right meters. Nothing is like it was 50 years ago. But the thing that is causing us the biggest problem is the fact the village built this new sewer plant for $32 million. And then they're spending another $5.5 million to move the dirt out. And this, in the paper you read today, they're going to spend another $10 million to get rid of the dirt. And that $15.5 million, we didn't get a pipe, a pump, a wire, nothing. So in essence, that plant, instead of costing $22.5 million that they first talked about, it's going to be over $40 million. And the money has been spent, and it has to be paid back. And that's without interest. Thank you.
How come the town people have no voice on that?
We're not elected to that. Okay.
And we share it. So
We share it by a contract that is 50 years old.
Okay, and the contract is expired.
And we're trying to negotiate one, and guess what? What they want to negotiate is basically what they've got. We're not going to that. So now we're in the arbitration. Okay. So hopefully we're going to prevail. But it's a difficult issue. But the whole issue began because this plant was so costly. And
Was it built primarily for the village to make more money because the development and whatever else, and they created a sewer plant that was way beyond the needs of the people of Goshen?
You know, I don't want to go into, those are some of the issues in arbitration. We're in arbitration. I would love to, after arbitration, I'll sit here and have a cup of coffee and choose to brag about it. Because you're close to the truth. Yes. Okay. Now, the next items I want to get into are the rates.
Before you do that, how about your iPhone? I'm going to be very brief, not like this. Okay. At the beginning of the meeting, he introduced us to the team that represents you. And the team can't operate without a manager, without a leader. And that's Doug Bloomfield. As you've heard from this report, he's a hands-on type of supervisor. He watches your dollars like it's coming out of his checkbook. And he keeps all the board members right on top of the issues. So we have a great leader here in Doug Bloomfield. And rest assured, if a dollar can be saved, Doug Bloomfield and his team's going to do it for you.
Whoa, thank you very much.
He lets money out of his checkbook?
Thank you, Doug. Well, you're quite welcome.
Walking on the street.
My wife calls me chief. I say, no. I'm physically responsible. She says, I don't want to hear that crap. No, you're chief.
Tight as a bar.
Tight as a bargain, I'm sure. All right, now let's talk about the rate, and this is why you want to hear this stuff anyway. I want to talk about Hamiltonian Park water. Right now, we have almost $41,000 in the checking account. And that's good. It's positive. But last year, at this time, we had $87,000 in the checkbook. And the reason why we've lost about $45,000 in money, some of it last year we appropriated to the sewer. We were really short on sewer. But one of the reasons is, if you look under the dialogue down here, is Last year, we decreased your water rates 22% because we paid all for the paying of the line. That $400,000 we finally got from the federal government, we paid it down, and so the amount you're paying is reduced there. So what we're going to do this year, just to be on the safe side, we're going to increase your rates by 3%. And so that's going to be about $3.88 per household per quarter. $3.89 for the average user average. So to see if we can get a little bit more money in the positive. Now that money will be yours. It'll still be there. But it means that if we have any kind of aberration, a leak or this or that, we can respond to it and pay cash.
Now, aren't we paying separately for those new lines going
Yes, we
in
are.
there?
Yes.
And therefore, why should our monthly water bills or quarterly water bills be increased?
Yeah.
Well, because we don't have enough fund balance. I mean, you've got 41,000, but you can have a problem with your tank or this or that, and we could go through that money real quick. We would like to have somewhere about $70,000 in the bank, in the checkbook, in case something. And you'll see when I go to Stonehenge, they had 2 water leaks. It was $31,000 to repair them. And this is water leaks. Doesn't mean tank.
Tell me
We're
again.
going in part, we put those new lines in over there.
No, we put
the
in-
most sensitive areas.
We put in one line. You've got a lot of lines.
Okay, but the most sensitive and breakdown area was redone.
And he'll go through
Let me go through the numbers, then we'll come back. Those are good questions, but we'll, okay?
We'll talk to you. Thank you.
Hamiltonian Park Sewer. I'd like to tell you, it's right now, last year at this time, we were almost $192,000 in the hole, negative fund balance. And that includes what the village says we owe them. But we started collecting that money, and collecting it so that if we ever lose the arbitration, we'd have it to pay. And we've reduced it because now we're down to about $153,000 negative fund balance. 192 to 153. Now, our budget officer, Mr. Standish, the fellow over there that's sitting next to the last one that's trying to blend in and not answer any questions. He wrote a letter to the village back at the end of March and said, I need to know what the village is going to charge the town of Goshen for the residents in Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hill. And I need that information by the 11th of April so that the board could discuss it and we could reflect it in the rates. Well, we got the information today, and we don't understand the information today because the numbers were too high. We just don't see how it could possibly be. So I can't give you a rate for the sewer, which means then we're going to have to get back together in Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hills for another rate discussion. And we're going to have to clarify this. So I apologize. We asked. We've been calling. We didn't get. We got it today. And it doesn't make any sense to us. In fact, the budget officer went over and talked to them, and we don't have a clue. But I don't want to put the number down they gave us because you'd all have heart failure.
Are we not sharing the expense of that sewer treatment plant where we have no voice in it?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. It's in your record.
That's legal. Without representation? Or
No, it's part of your contract. 50 years ago.
Well, that 50-year-ago contract is expired.
Still, but by law, even if it's expired, if you don't negotiate a new one, it's still in vogue. Let me go through the rates and we'll come back. Good question. Arcadia Hills Water, there's 263 homes there. You have $22,603 positive fund balance. It's a gain over last year. Last year you had 0, so we're on the right track. And I'd say that we're gonna go up 2%, or about $2.92 a quarter. In Arcadia Hills, in regard to the sewer, it's the same thing as we had for Hamiltonian Park. We just don't know the numbers, and we will certainly have to get back together.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
The bottom of Hamiltonian Park, there are two numbers there, there's $56, I know it is, there's another one underneath this is $174. Can you just explain those, because those look like, charges.
They are.
Can you explain them?
Yeah.
I know what number one is.
Okay. What we did last year, we split out the I&I. We know what the I&I is. And what was happening is the high users were paying for more of the I&I. And we thought, well, that's not fair. All those pipes are leaking. It has nothing to do with usage. So what we did is we took the I&I charge by itself, divided through by the number of homes. So everybody pays the same rate for the I&I. So that's what that is.
How come our fees compared to the village?
Are you finished with your question there?
I'm sorry. I'm still a little confused. I understand the $56, this is $174 for 2011, what is that?
Bill, can you talk?
Yeah, that was for 2011. We'll be doing this each year that we have considerable inflow. So we'll always have a current year. Once we're done with the 08, the 09, which is the last year for that to catch up on that, that won't be there. But we'll always have a current year for the inflow so that each house is paying a fair share of just the inflow. We remove those out of the rate.
Out of the rate.
Got it.
Yes, the rate.
But it's a dramatic increase.
Can we put,
56 to 174.
can we put meters in strategic places?
Let's finish this quick.
So $56 per quarter for what we will pay through February of next year,
Correct.
plus $174 for 2011.
Correct. And last year, that same number was there, and the 2010 number was there also,
Okay.
slightly. So it
What
has-
was
What
that?
was left?
I don't have it with me.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, 112, I think it was like $97. It wasn't a lot last. Well, the inflows were a little stronger, but there was a 2010
Okay.
on last year's staff. Once the 08, 09 is away, then you just have just the current year's inflows, and we'll keep on top of that.
So it'll only be one less, okay.
Right. So Arcadia Hills, again, when we talk about the fact we don't have the information. Now we go to Stonehenge. Stonehenge has 42 homes. Last year, they had $20,000 in the $20,000 in their fund balance. This year, they're down about $25,000. We were collecting money to put the backup well in, and we commissioned the backup well. But if you go down to the bottom, we had two major water leaks for $31,000. So all the money that we had before we commissioned the water leaks, the pumps for the well, was used on the water leaks. We did complete the backup well for $37,000. With the 20 that we had, plus what we felt we'd accumulate, we could do that. It is what it is. But anyway, we have two issues in Stonehenge. We're still $25,000 in the hole in negative fund balance, which we've got to make up. And we still need to accumulate for these new meters. But the big thing that put us in the hole, again, was the two water leaks, which shows the importance of having a fund balance that's large enough to maintain yourself during emergency. So in this particular case, we're going to have a 10% increase, or about $19.9, say $20 per quarter, about $5 a month. And that should get our fund balance back up. We'll start accumulating for the meters, and we'll pay off the balance of these two repairs and the well. In Scotchtown, there are 45 homes. We had quite a significant fund balance last year, and we used it for the work, putting the tank in. We rushed putting that tank in because some people in the subdivision said, I think we ought to do this. The water quality and everything else in this tank was rotten. So we decided, let's do it. The market was down, and we got a very competitive bid. It was a thing to do. But we put the tank in before we had all the cash in hand. So right now, we're about $7,200 in the hole, which is not much. We we're looking now at a 2% increase, or about we're going to do that, see if we can get that, pay off the balance of the tank, the work we did, and create a fund balance so that we can move forward without any worry about having the money to pay the thing. But the good news for Scotchtown is you basically have a new system. Well, we got that pipe situation we're working with, but unless something else breaks that I don't even know we own, I think it's going to be, we're out of the woods on that one. Yes?
What was the total of, since the beginning, when you folks took over our really serious system that we had? Do you have an approximate figure on that? Because the other administration, the other supervisor quoted $450,000 to overhaul the whole system. And I think you guys came in probably half or less than that?
Yeah. I'd say that I doubt it would even get to 200. I think it's going to probably 125, 150.
Oh, wow.
And that's replacing everything. I mean, you guys have a real good water system.
No, good job. I have to,
That's without, back then they didn't propose a new tank either.
Well, I think the base, I mean, there's a couple things. Number one, we did a lot of it with our own people. Number two, we did it with paying cash rather than borrowing money. Number three, we did it during the low time. In December 2008, the current time, you can get contractors to do things for a whole lot less. When they were talking about it, they were in with the peak. Everybody was building homes and doing things, and we were paying premium dollars for things. So it just worked out this way. But I'd say it's probably no more than 150, but not that high. But thank you for the comment. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I must have phased out a little bit. Just Spanish, if you would mind going through this one more time.
Sure.
Back to Hamiltonian Park. The $56 that you have on your ledger.
Right.
Okay, now is that going to be added to the 174? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the 56 plus the 174 plus the unspeakable rates that the village has provided. I'm just trying to find out.
I found last year.
Oh, okay. All right, so
146 last year.
okay, so the 56 plus the 174 plus the unspeakable.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Apologize for that.
Nope, that's fine.
I got a big folder on
People are in
Pardon?
How many people are in
I
arrears?
keep everything.
Oh, we go.
Come on, guys, we have one meeting here. The question is, how many people are in arrears? And every November, people who do not pay their water and sewer bill, it goes on to the taxes, and the county gives up, it goes on their property tax, what they call a tax-free levy. The county then sends us a check by the end of the year. So right now, these people aren't paying, we've only got 3 months, and I don't know what that number is, but last year, for all the water and sewer districts, it was about $287,000 of unpaid water and sewer bills. That the county then gave us the money, so we're whole by the end of the year. Very good. Would you like to work in the finance department? That's one that just blows my mind.
Well, I'm a realtor, so I realize that as selling homes.
Okay.
A lot of people aren't paying that, so it
I know.
goes up, as that funding.
You know, one of the things that I keep up with all these finances, I just, who I am. We've been averaging about 40, 45 foreclosures in the town and village of Goshen since January of 2009. And you'd be surprised the number of people who, for whatever reason, they lose a job or this or that, they lose their home, but they don't pay their water and sewer bills. And so it all ties together. We've had some really 2 tough years. And the way our government is set up, though, is rather than you taking that burden, the county takes that burden by forwarding that money to us. And then they deal with the homeowners to get it back. Yes, sir.
Of course, people can't pay the town, the water and sewer bills, and you guys are compensated by the county.
Yes.
What benefit is there people don't pay their water and
It goes in their property tax, they don't pay the tax, and houses put it up for tax sale. They lose their home.
They lose their home, or it appears on their tax bill?
It appears in the tax bill, they don't pay the tax bill, they lose their home.
Okay, well, that's...
Oh, no, the county gets it back, plus interest or a penalty. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
but if you're a homeowner, you're doing a long form or whatever, I mean, this is something that you could claim on your taxes.
That's between the person and your IRS.
If you want to do that. Unadvisable, but you can try.
We thought one time we were gonna get in that business, and our professional saying that's up for grabs, whether that's legal or not.
Was it being charged for the village sewer in a cloud of usage?
Yes.
Not tax?
They, if you were to go to your your accountant or whoever does your work, or you do it yourself, look at the laws, look at the regulations, and you make your own decision. Beats me. Now, one of the things I want to say one more time, we have not, for Hamiltonian Park Hamiltonian Park sewer, Arcadia sewer, we have not established rates. As soon as we do that, we'll set a public hearing again, we'll ask you all to come in, and we'll go through it. The rates we saw today, we questioned, they were extremely high, and I don't understand them, and I don't want to explain anything to anybody if I don't understand. But I do know this, if you read the paper, the village is borrowing, well, they said, I guess $10 million to remove that dirt pile.
They screwed up.
And to get rid of that, that's before the interest and all the other things that go with it, but that's a heck of a lot of money. And it has to be paid back, and if I'm a betting person, they're going to try to come back to us to help pay for some of that. So, don't know. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, we're going to leave in the back of that question before we kind of cut it off.
I did. It was in regards to the houses in specifically Hamiltonian that have the illegal hookups and so on.
Okay.
In regards to that, I was told by people that work for the Water and Sewer Commission that if the engineer was here 3 years ago and that nothing was ever followed up on and did the smoke test 3 years ago and they came to the house, this is before the board even sent a letter out or anything to check for illegal hookups.
And it's a very good question. We did follow up on that. Mark Warren and all the fellows went out. I specifically gave them that list.
Right, and in Hamiltonian, it was only 19 houses, and it was 2 years later.
Well, we did it this past year, in 2010, and we didn't find many of the things that engineer said. In fact, I think we found one. And so we have another engineer now. We've got an incredible engineer, and he's telling us that, talking about the cost of these inappropriate hookups. So we're not going to do an engineering study. We can walk and look at a basement and see if there's a sump pump, and we'll see where it's piped outside. Is it outside the window in the grass, or is it into the pipe in the basement going into the sanitary sewer with the toilet? If it is, we will ask them to disconnect it and come back in a week and see that it's disconnected, and that's done. And so this is the part that we really need to do to save a lot of money. So your point's very well taken.
What percentage of influx comes from the sump pumps
We don't know.
individual residences, other than probably a massive influx from somewhere else?
I don't know the answer to the question. What we want to do is work on them all.
Can we put strategic meters in places that feed in?
We can do a lot of things. We really can. But all of them have a price tag. It's very easy to just walk in the basement and say, oh, that sump pump goes right into that sewer line underneath the toilet and goes right into the drain.
That's minimal. That affects the influx minimally.
No, it
No,
doesn't.
it doesn't.
When the water table goes up, that thing could be pumping for days.
Yeah.
And our engineer told us, you could be talking millions of gallons over the course of a year. Just 10 houses can cause over a couple million gallons.
I think
10
that
houses.
one pump can be more than 30 homes. One pump running more than 30 homes.
Why every time it rains?
Because of the cracks in the pipes and sump pumps, they're all,
Okay, so that is the major contributor.
One of them.
one of them.
Can I get them all?
Dan?
Is this question time?
Yeah. We have Dan's too, yeah.
You do.
I just got a couple things for you.
Okay.
Always.
Who's doing, the testing on the houses?
It'll be Mark Warren and Anthony.
So we got our own smoke machine though?
Or not gonna smoke.
Just check.
All you gotta do is go down to the basement. Do you have a sump pump? And if you look at the four corners of the basement, there's no sump pump, thank you very much, and leave. If you've got a sump pump, they'll look and see where that pipe goes in. Does it go into your sanitary sewer, or does it go out to the wall to the lawn? That's it.
Before you mentioned about, looking up into Heritage in New York.
Right.
Okay, I just got a couple of questions about that. Because next month Hamiltonian Park is going to be deciding on how they want to do this. Our big concern is that we got enough water.
Yes.
There's not going to be a water
Right.
problem. Heritage did the test, their PERG test, and they have enough water.
Huh?
Right? When they did their test, do you know, did they monitor our wells when they were doing their test? Do you know anything about that?
All of this is gonna be discussed on the 18th.
Our engineer's going to be here.
Dennis Lindsay, professional engineer, is gonna go through all this information. He's going to show you that they have more water to your benefit, but I'll let him do all of that.
Okay.
Someone in the back.
Yeah, you got a question.
Yes.
The article in last week's article seems to state that the village residents are paying $75 a quarter for the sewage, is that correct?
They're paying, they were paying for the cost of the new plant. They don't do it in their rates like we do. What each home in the village was doing, they were paying $70 each quarter for the principal and interest to buy the new plant. They were paying $10 a quarter for money they borrowed for their water systems. So they're paying a total of $80. Now with this dirt pile and the $10 million they're borrowing, it's going to go from 70 to 170, 121% increase.
What's all concerned?
But they,
No, the man is asking the question.
they were paying $80.
They were paying 80 and now they're going to pay
I'm
180.
paying $200 and they were paying $80.
Plus usage.
Well, oh yeah, then they pay usage. That's just to pay for the
What usage? They're metered?
They're metered. They're billed on a water system, so 1 gallon of water equals 1 gallon of sewage.
That's
So if
just
you're-
surcharge, sir. It's not,
That's a surcharge.
it has nothing to do with the
With the cost.
measurement of the sewer, water, anything. That's just a surcharge to pay down the debt.
Okay, yeah, the article wasn't clear on that.
Right.
That's what it is.
Well,
It's right on the, I got copies of the village bills. I have copies of everything because I was on the team.
I paid the village bill, I certainly have a copy. My surcharge, my assessment is now $680 a year, when it was zero before this village.
Without metering
Our
any
rates,
usage.
our sewer rates have gone up exponentially the same, so we're all in the same, I mean, it's terrible, terrible
they got to pay the money back. It's been spent.
situation that has been created, and it's just getting worse for us and for you. If you don't pay that surcharge, that $680.
No, they pay a percentage.
Yeah.
It's still based on rate.
Sir, you got a question?
Right. Yeah.
I have one that I never really understood here.
Me too.
In terms of the building.
Okay.
You have, like, Acadia and having other districts as well. You have a certain charge, Acadia is up to, 12,000 gallons, charge
Right.
per gallon.
Right.
If I'm only one person in my household, so I use very little. In my case, I use
Right.
probably less than 2,000 gallons a quarter.
Right.
But the point of it is that why isn't it, and I get charged still $365 or something like that, whatever it is, close to that.
Right.
Exactly, maybe 363, I don't really know
Right.
exactly, but I get charged that regardless of whether
Right.
I never use a drop.
Right.
If I went away to Florida for 6 months, I'm still gonna get charged
Right.
300 and whatever,
Yes.
$3, and I know it's going up.
Right.
And my question is this, I'm just looking at fairness.
Right.
And I'm also looking at affordability for different people in different situations. Why should I be paying for somebody who's using 12,000 gallons, and I'm only using, let's say, 2,000 gallons? I'm just giving you.
Sure.
I'm just throwing out figures on that. But the point of what it is what I'm saying is, why is our system not on a system where you pay for what you use? I mean, it's just like anything else. Why should somebody who uses less have to pay for somebody who uses more? And that just doesn't seem like a very fair way of distributing the cost. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
And maybe, yes, that would, maybe to do that, you would have to increase the amount per gallon, because somewhere along you have to get the same revenue, and don't get me wrong, I don't misunderstand that.
Right,
It's like
right.
taxes, you get less people paying taxes because of foreclosure, somebody else has got to pick up, you still got to pick up the tab. So I understand that, but what I don't understand, I never understood, was we have a lot of senior people in our town. I mean, maybe it's not like me where it's only one, but maybe it's two people.
Sure.
They don't use, they don't consume, they're not doing the grass, they're not doing, they don't have kids, they don't have, a whole bunch of people. And it seems somewhat that there is nothing in the town at all to even account for that. As senior citizens, and we're on fixed income. I mean, senior citizens are on fixed income. We don't get, very nice for people working, but there are a lot of senior citizens who are on fixed incomes, as I'm sure you would understand, that are in fixed incomes, and we don't, it's fair, look,
Let me see if I can answer it.
it's fair to have a certain,
Right.
it's fair to have, say, a certain amount that says, hey, look, this is for maintenance, and everybody's got to pay it. But then over and above that,
Right.
shouldn't it be more in terms of by usage, after you figure out what is fair in terms of, everybody has to pay a maintenance, okay?
Well, here's the way it works. What we're doing here is probably comparable to what every water system in the nation does. And here's the rationale behind it. To put the tank on the hill, to run the pumps, whether you're taking water off it or not, and the maintenance of that, the trucks and the guys' salaries and all that, whether you're using it or not, using the water out, has to be paid. And it's just a way of trying without hurting you severely. At the same time, not hurting somebody who has 6 kids severely. There is probably no perfect system unless you have a well of your own, with your own pump. But now let's take that. If you had a well of your own, okay, you turn it on, you bring the water in, and it's, say, ½ cent a gallon. And that's great until the well pump goes by, and then it's $1,800, and you've got to pay for your own well pump. So what this is a system by way of sharing all these inequities through this system. And again, if you were to go to United Water or anybody else, they've got a comparable, graduated...
Fixed expenses.
But I'll tell you the disadvantage that I see in that, okay? And beyond the fairness.
Right.
The disadvantage is, look, my neighbor's using close to 12,000, okay? Because they have a family and they like to mow their lawn, and they have to have a great lawn. And I don't really care about my lawn because I'm on a 15 cup, and all I'm worried about is staying in my house.
Okay.
I mean, okay. So you got two different types of people, fine. But my point is that it's a disincentive for me to only use 2,000 gallons. So I should say, well, the hell with it. I mean, if it's going to cost me for 12,000 gallons of water.
Right.
I mean, I could very well say to you, I mean, I'm not saying I personally do that,
I
but
understand.
I'm sure a lot of people may look at it and say, hey, what the hell do I care? I have to pay the same amount anyway.
Right.
And I mean, so why should I conserve on water? You know, why should I put in these special things on the shower? Why should I put in you know, all these different new technology things that we have in conserving water? Why should I care if there's a leak in my, I really don't care.
Expenses to provide water to you, the tanks, the pipes, this and that.
And I'm agreeing with that. But
Right,
I'm
that's where
saying
it
to you
comes-
is
that's
that,
where it
look,
comes about.
It's like my gas bill, okay?
Right.
My gas bill, if I don't use a bit of gas, if I turn my gas off
Right.
during the summer, because I don't use it, I don't need it for heat, okay? Or well, you know, you use it for hot water. But I mean, but let's say, you know, so it's very
pay
low.
nothing.
They're gonna charge me a certain amount,
Right.
whether or not I use it or not. And
Right.
that's fair, okay? Because they need it for maintenance.
But you know what?
All I'm suggesting here is that it seems to me a much more fair system if you come up with a charge that says, look, hey, this is what it costs, you know, considering how many people we have. I mean, you know, you have to share it among everybody. This is what it costs just for maintenance. Now, it does make a difference, though, whether or not you use 12,000 gallons or you use 2,000 gallons, because you've already told me that.
Right.
Because it makes a difference in the sewer system in terms of how much comes in, in terms of how much they're going to charge us in the village. So it does make a difference, and it does make a difference in terms of incentive. And all I'm saying to you is that, to me, it would seem a much fairer system just to consider. And I'm not saying that, you know,
Right.
I realize, you know.
I'm not so sure we could.
I'm not saying that, you know, I have enough people that there are enough senior people or whatever the case may, that would agree with me. I really don't know. But it's just I never understood
Right.
that kind of thing in terms of why. Okay, I can understand you coming to me and saying, look, your maintenance bill has gone up because we have to do certain things to fix the system, you know? And, you know, just like, I've been here 25 years, and I can tell you, you know, when I first came here, I had my own meter. And on the outside, you had your meter, and people came and they read the meter. Well, all of a sudden, one year, they decide, well, okay, like you say, we're going to go through the automated system.
Right.
Well, which wasn't so bad, except that now they took out my meter, which was perfectly fine.
Right.
And they took it. They wouldn't even let me have it. They
Right.
took it, which
Right.
had to be worth something.
It was.
They took out the meter, puts in a new meter, and they charged me for like 4 or 5 years,
Right.
you know, for that new meter,
Right.
you know, to put in to the system. Okay, I consider that maintenance cost, okay? Because over the long haul, that's a maintenance situation where you guys are telling me that it's going to benefit us. You know, I guess the guy coming around to read the meter is more.
You're paying for that guy.
I don't think that that's fair.
Let me see if I can. I'm going to answer your
I'm not saying you
question.
may agree with me, I'm just.
Let me answer your question, and then I'm going to go on to other questions, okay?
It's a fair way.
There's a fixed cost that varies from year to year depending on water leaks, this and that. This system was put together to collect money to try to be fair to everybody. It's fair to you, it's fair to the real heavy users. This is what the system was put in place. It is probably not perfect. It is not perfect. But to build in a lot of these, to work on a lot of these things within the system that we have and the meters and this and that, it would be very, very difficult. This is a pretty standard system. It is kind of time proven. And if you're a high user, you might say it's not fair. If you're a low user, you say it's not fair. Somebody in the middle might. So it is a system that has been discussed.
But all my utilities don't work that way.
Well, I'm just
My
saying-
electric utility says, look, you pay it.
You don't own the
Pay a certain amount of money.
utility system, you own your water system.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
But this is a
No,
district, you're not.
You own your pipes and tanks and things, you don't own the power company.
No, but
We need to
I'm
get
just saying, I'm just trying to compare it to, you're saying that
Right.
it's common. And all I'm saying, I'm just comparing it to all the other utilities I pay.
Okay.
There's a maintenance charge for my electric, no matter how much electric I use.
Sir, I need to get to these other questions.
Okay.
I think
Well, here's your point.
I understand your point, and what I'm sharing with you is I don't think the system's gonna
You don't have the
change.
answer.
And I don't have the
So you don't believe that?
I believe
Oh,
you.
don't.
I got more questions, sir. I
Most of
think
the damn much to have to.
Sir, okay.
Nick, what's
Thanks.
about, Nick?
First of all, I wanted to say that we went to the village meeting the other night, and I wish I had a sign that said, "Welcome to our world."
Okay. We probably would have gone too if we didn't have a meeting.
Yeah, it was mostly senior citizens, and you know, we really felt for them a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
But my question is, would you say that one of the major costs to all of us is the infiltration?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And whether I use 5 gallons of water or 20,000 gallons of water, it doesn't affect that infiltration, whatever.
From a sewer.
Right.
Right.
From a sewage point. So
But if you're being charged more, you might use less.
okay, but again, the infiltration is not affected by how much I use at all, not one bit. And our infiltration is 60 million gallons. It's 2/3 infiltration. I mean, 60% of what we pay for is infiltration.
But that's infrastructure, and that's improvements and all of that. And that's like
38 million.
Tens of millions, 20s of millions of dollars.
Good point. Dan?
I got a question for Phil, but I just wanted to say...
Well, that's very good, you've got it.
I haven't said a word, but okay.
Did you see him after the meeting?
I just wanted to bring some recognition to Kenny and Lou for the amount of work that they did before we ended up going to arbitration. Because I know these two guys did a lot of work on it, and Lou was living, breathing.
Number man.
Every night. So, when you were running for mayor, what was that thing that you found out? Was there something about putting our expenses on our getting them reduced off our taxes somehow?
I think there's a formula Washington uses it each year, and Will's from Washington, actually, Bill is the one that there's a tax regulation where that you they say you're allowed to deduct a certain percentage of capital costs and operations. Yeah, go ahead, Bill. And I have copies of that, yes, if you'd like it.
So, is that still...
I don't mind your office, you come into my office and we'll read together. What I did is I went to first of all, I checked the state of New York legal department. I pulled up the regulation that supposedly is strict.
Right.
Washingtonville does do that. Now, Washingtonville does not tell us to go ahead and deduct it on our taxes. That's not their business. They say, we're going to tell you how much you can put on you, and your tax consultant decides you want to take a chance to do it. So I choose not to do that.
Why is it?
Well, let me get into the whole story. I checked on the regulation. The State Department couldn't come to any great determination. In fact, they said they hadn't really heard that. And they went back in the archives of regulations. And sure enough, there is one sort of a regulation about 3 sentences long, which deals with sidewalks and municipalities. It is not clear. We talked to the board, and I said, it's not my decision. I, as a resident of Washingtonville, told my tax consultant, do not put that on me. I'm not taking it. I don't want to come back and have to say, somebody else interpreted that, some legal department, the IRS interpreted it, and say, well, how did you say it's really not clear? I have a copy of that regulation. I'd like to show it to you, and you can tell me if you can clearly feel that it specifically says your cost for your water source.
Well,
it doesn't say that.
With that being said, the Village of Washington does the calculation and gives you the regulation as to why they're going to give you the calculation and why you may or be able to take this as a tax deduction. It's between you and your accountant, whether you want to take that deduction. But I haven't taken it, I mean, we haven't done it because I can't get the calculations from the village. However, I would have given everyone, done the same thing as Washingtonville, said, here it is, here's the regulation, here's the calculation, put it in your hands and you make your decision.
With the new administration there, Phil, did we get those calculations from the village now?
I don't know. If we haven't been able to get them before.
Do you have anybody in Washington being audited though by the IRS?
But everyone's had great, in Washingtonville, other than Phil, had great deductions and low tax rates.
They're gonna have a high incarceration rate.
Yeah, except Phil, he's been paying a lot of tax.
Are there any other questions?
Go ahead.
Another question is, just want to hear my voice. I live on Redwood Drive in Arcadia Hills, and there are 8 homes on Redwood. 6 of them are owned by people. One of them is owned by the state, and the other couple aren't retired quite yet. And I'd like to add my voice to the gentleman over there that something should be done where when I use less than 12,000 gallons of water, I'm paying $363. Even if you just reduce the minimum, 10,000, 5,000. What's the minimum in Hamiltonian Park?
First question I want to ask you, sir. The 364, is that for water and sewer?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Okay, well, it's just,
because there's 2 methodologies in this.
Right, $99 for water.
All right. So it's 364 for both, okay.
Well, the water's low.
Charged by usage for both.
Right, the water's low. I mean, it really is compared to the sewer.
I don't use the water. I can
You're-
almost use
But with the $99 you pay,
$99 for a lot of bottled water.
stop and think about what you own. The pumps, the lines, the meters, the tank, the wells,
every day.
the people coming to put, whether you use the water or not, those expenses go on. To support you, when you turn that faucet on, you can
But
get
I'm
the
not
water.
using those.
But you flush your commodes.
I'm not using the pump, I'm not using the water.
No, yes you are.
I'm not using it.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
only need that pump to supply me with my water.
When you open that valve,
Right, I'm
okay,
doing water.
those pumps are running continuously in that circle of that line, whether you tap off it or not.
Yeah.
Those pumps, the maintenance of those pumps, the electricity of those pumps, all that, the people out there, that's what you're paying for.
Break it out. But I'm also paying for the person that is overusing the pump.
Well, what we're saying is the system we have, that's a base charge. Those people pay more. They pay appreciably more if they have 6 kids and that faucet's on more. It's a system we have. And could it be tweaked? Maybe. But it's not going to be, it's a lot of work and maybe a lot of expense to do it. The system is very comparable, again, to what water systems throughout the nation, commercial ones use. Everybody's got when you turn, it's kind of like a car. Whether you put 10 miles on it a year or 10,000 miles on a year, the cost of the car, the payment's the same. The gas is less, but the cost of the car to you is the same.
No.
If you have a Mercedes over here.
I'm not changing the oil, I'm not putting gas in it, I'm not paying insurance on it.
Well, you're paying insurance on
If
it.
I drive 20,000 miles a year, I'm paying quite a bit more than if I drive 3,000 miles.
If you have a new Cadillac in your driveway and you got payments on it, you're paying for the car whether you drive it or not. That's what point I'm trying to make. The maintenance and the operations is something.
Well, that's what you're paying for.
But when you put the key ignition,
The product I own, it's up on the hill now, it's been there for 40 years.
Okay. What is?
No. Tanks are paid for.
Oh, no, they're not.
That tank isn't paid for.
We got to set aside the money to take that tank out of service, to repair the inside, to clean it the outside, and put it back in service. It takes money. Okay, it's a difference of opinion for. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, but it is very difficult to be perfect in what we're doing. That's why it's 0 to 12,000.
And Hamiltonian.
Pardon?
What's the minimum charge for Hamiltonian?
5.
$5,000.
It's a different district, different number of homes, different expenses, different history. And that was the way it was set up years ago. And they're paying appreciably more than you are. From 0 to 5,000 gallons is $10.05. 0 to 12,000 in Arcadia Hills is $8.25. Arcadia Hills has, well, it is, that's exactly right. And you have more people in Arcadia Hills to bring the cost down.
And we didn't have any major
You did not.
pitfalls last year.
No, you did not.
Cost down.
You didn't? But you're gonna have some.
Oh, definitely.
You know, I mean, it happened. Right now, you got $23,000 in the bank.
We had a couple of good ones in Arcadia Hills last year. We had a place on one
We
line
didn't have any
from one pump all the way down.
jobs.
And we had the big water main break on Lodgewood. That had to be that was on Mr. Rignetta's house. We had some pretty
Now,
big
for some
repairs.
reason, the highway department is being more cooperative, I guess, helping the water districts.
But they charge the water districts. That's not, the highway department does it, but then it's put on the water district. They're not charging them.
That's taxpayers, we have to separate it. It's not as much as if we brought in A+, because they're just getting their regular hours. You know, nighttime you do A+, you're talking $75 per mechanic per hour, then there's overtime. So there's significant savings, but we still have to charge it off because the state makes you charge it off because you're individual water districts. And you can't use taxpayers' money for that.
Water district, the same as sewer district?
Huh?
Water district, the same as sewer district?
Yeah, it's all the same. You got that.
Each subdivision has one of each, and each one has an account.
How much has water usage been inflated to supplement the sewer?
What's the question again, sir?
Water usage, which should be minimal, water usage, which should be minimal,
Right.
okay, with the exception of the maintenance and so on that you've mentioned before,
Right.
should be minimal
Yeah,
as compared to what we're being charged for sewer service.
that's correct.
And how much is the water bill being inflated to compensate
It's not.
for this exorbitant
It's
sewer?
not.
No,
It's not.
each one
Each
operates on
one's
its
different.
own.
It's not.
I'm sorry.
Your sewer bill is, it is. Your sewer bill is a sewer bill, and it pays for the sewer infrastructure. Your water bill is a water bill for the water infrastructure, two separate line items. The accountants do that. Every time they come in, they put it in the proper pew of the church.
But they're both based on usage of water.
Yeah, but his point is well taken is the fact that our sewer bill in the village is predicated upon how much water we use. But they consider whether or not it really does go into the sewer system or not. They take into consideration the fact that whatever it is that we use as a district in terms of income is also considered our...
Here's how we're billed.
Yeah.
It's not quite like you're saying.
No, it's not
It's
the
not
same.
like you're saying.
Completely.
What we do, the number of gallons that we send to the village, let's say it's Arcadia Hills.
Right.
You use 10% of the village capacity of that plant. You are charged 10% of the operating cost of that plant,
Plus
plus 10%. The 10% being the fee that they charge us for having access to their plant. That number then, we divide it amongst all the people in Arcadia Hills based on how much water they consume.
That's what I'm saying.
The village has nothing to do with it. We do it.
I understand
Okay.
that, but it's still based upon
Water.
how much is consumed. And that's
Yeah.
what he's saying to you.
Sure.
Is that, so when you say to him, okay, it's only costing you $99 for your water and $200 and some odd dollars.
It's gallons of water, yes.
For the sewage, it's still based on the fact that how much water is consumed in Arcadia,
Right.
it still affects how much in sewage bills we pay the village. And that's all he's making
We're
the
paying
point
for
of.
water we're not using, we're paying for sewage we're not using.
And I think that's the
There's
point he's trying to
no
make.
way that everybody uses 100% of the water that they draw from the system. Okay, because for other reasons or whatever, it's first elsewhere. You're washing your car, doing your lawn, whatever, you know, it's certainly got to be less than 100% of the water drawing it.
Right. Yeah, but you have to remember,
Okay,
you're
now,
not,
we go back to the infiltration.
you're not calculating the infiltration in there.
Okay,
Is there
infiltration.
any way that we
Now,
can get a discount?
what can we do to
for
control the infiltration?
Well, if you talk, Ken, if you will,
We don't have the authority to do this.
we've been working
We
on
don't have the authority
infiltration.
to
No,
do
no,
this.
I said, is there any way that you guys can?
That's what I'm
When's
saying.
it gonna happen?
We don't have,
When's it gonna happen?
we can't say the seniors are more important than the high users, and that's what that would be doing. Sir in the back.
Can say the low users are just.
We got a question.
Taking advantage of.
Yeah.
Okay.
You started the meeting, sure you can hear me.
Yeah.
You started the meeting talking about Scotstown having an infrastructure issue or a leak today.
Yes,
Something about a diagonal line going
Yes.
through somebody's backyard.
yes.
Please elaborate on that. I saw
Okay.
water trucks parked in
Driveway.
Mr. Zaccone's driveway this morning, when I came home.
When they built the
I was
subdivision,
curious as to how
sure.
that, what,
When they built the subdivision, however number of years ago,
Swanson, when he built,
when the subdivision was built,
right.
the builder would normally come down the roadway and then in front of homes, and you would have the leads into the homes go to the front. Okay. Well, when they were building those homes along Scotstown Avenue, he said, I'm not going to run that pipe down there. Right? I'm going to run through everybody's backyard. I'm going to save $800 on pipe. And he did.
Where, we'd be talking, now you said Mark figured where that line is.
So we got what they call the Rural Water Service of the state of New York to tell us where we noticed that also the water we're producing, we're losing 10% of it.
Okay.
So we started a search. Where in heaven's name is the water at? We went in the backyards and there it is. So we had to get a mini excavator that would fit in between the buildings and the trees and the fence. And we went in and sure enough, there it is.
So he
We fixed one leak, and then on the main line going diagonally through these poor people's backyard, and then the other one is going to a home, and that homeowner, that unfortunately, it looks like that homeowner's got a leak under their patio, and that's their responsibility. It could be a deck or anything else, but it was a shortcut 30 years ago. Some guy made
they go like this, he went like
He
this.
made a right angle, because apparently he came off of John Drive
That's
at some
right,
point,
yeah.
and decided to go on some degree of an angle.
He went in between the houses.
Well, those houses, the water lines are basically entering from the rear of them.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the shortest
Found
point.
this out 35 years later?
Between 2
Yeah,
points is-
we have no reason to go in there and if it's not leaking. We inherited this thing in 2000.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Believe me, I was involved, I can't even tell you the
Right.
history of this thing from Swanson.
Right.
So who knows,
Oh, yeah.
now, and just for the record, I think you guys have done a fabulous job with the tank, you got it in, you got it great price. You really have done your end of it.
Right.
We're trying.
We're hard.
It's mind-boggling that they're finding it,
Well, I mean,
a diagonal line running through red, I got a neighbor with a fountain on his patio, but he's I mean,
I know.
and am I paying for it?
I know.
Because if that was.
No, you don't have to pay for it. They gotta pay for
It's
it.
supposed to go straight down to Scotstown and straight across,
Right.
now it's going on an angle through, is that the equivalent of it being the street line? And it happens to be on my property?
Well, that's, you know what?
You'd be a bit of a hot little hot water
You know
line.
what? If this person didn't let us in that property, we could not fix that pipe. We would have to cut everybody off, dig all the way down the street, and put in new leads in the front.
I just mentioned
At
that.
thousands of dollars.
I mean, I'm a potential contributor to the repairs.
Yeah.
I'm a definitely contributor to the repairs, but I don't know about the backyard.
Right.
I may even be on the hook for that. In fact, it should.
You are in the hook for the backyard one,
No, I
because it was
mean,
the main line, not under the patio.
Patio.
Well, we don't know it's under the patio for sure, but we think it is. Yeah.
I'll check it.
I hope, I certainly
I
hope
just saw
so.
your trucks there tonight when I came home.
No,
What's going on?
Yeah.
Nobody's putting in a swimming pool, don't worry.
Well, there are some swimming pools in the backyards of some of those homes, some on a hill.
I know.
You got water lines running through there leaking. You're gonna have thousands of gallons of water sitting back there. You got built-in pools that slide down.
We were losing 10% of the water we were producing.
How
All
are
right,
we
we're
increasing
fixing that for now, right?
how come we tweaking all that water and sewage bills when we haven't solved the last 2 years of, the town paying the village and everything else?
Well, it's in arbitration now. The courts are slow. I'm hoping by the end of the summer, we're gonna have an answer to this.
How much money we got in the piggy bank?
We're negative money in the piggy bank. They say we owe them $180,000 that we have not.
We got $180,000.
We don't have $180,000.
We're collecting
About the interest there.
No, I wish that was the case.
Yeah, less than 1%.
Yeah, we get a lot of interest.
One more question, then we need to probably call it off. Sir?
Got reading the notes here, Hamiltonia Park Water District finalized negotiations with New York Farms, also known as
$18
of this year.
Yeah.
Not May of
No,
2018.
right. A couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. I know, you live in Hamilton Park, correct?
And then we can just take the village right out of the entire equation.
No. I'd like to.
We'll explain that on the
I'd really like to. You know, I used to be as tall as you. Folks, thank you very much for coming.
Nick, thanks for coming. I've heard this question from Nick, and Myron Dubaski was supervisor. Well, he's the first time I met Nick. Yes, same exact question to Myron Dubaski.
Every time, too.
And it's got the same answer to Myron Dubaski.
I can show you bills for 5 years, and I have to say,
There's no, you know, my real answer, there's no perfect system.
That lady doesn't.
Hi, Chad.
Hey, guys. South Carolina.
How's it going?
She doesn't know how the system works.
I'll be able to go back.